if you had to choose between your own health, your family's well being, and your business, it'd be hard to say which of these am I going to ignore, right? Well, guess what? You don't have to ignore any of them. Check out this interview here with my friend Scotty on how he manages being a badass entrepreneur while being a father and taking better care of himself on the physical side. Enjoy, gents.
I think we might want to talk about how one can do it all, because a lot of times folks say, either or, either I'm going to make money or I'm going to take care of my family. I mean, I can't,
Right.
either I'm going to be in shape or I'm going to make money. Either I'm going to start a business or I'm going to lose this weight. Either I'm going to, there's so many either ors. Do you have any thoughts on that or experience on that stuff that I think holds us back? I mean, all of us, myself included.
I got to credit my two buddies, John Vroman and John Berghoff. When I was getting deep into coaching a couple of years ago, I ended up kind of in a startup mastermind that they were doing. John Vroman has now gone on to do amazing things and runs a group called Front Row Dads. And it's fathers who are business owners, not business owners who are trying to be fathers. And John Berghoff runs this huge platform called Exchange, where he teaches people to basically walk organizations through like a transformational process. So they've both done really big things. And when I got hooked up with this group of guys and we were doing kind of our mastermind, we came back to this exact question several times where it's like, hey, how can we get rid of that either or situation in our brain and make it be an and situation, right? So it's like, well, I can either go to jujitsu for 2 hours and get kind of the male camaraderie and the physicality and the workout that I need, or I can be home honoring my kids and spending time with my family. And what John really helped me realize is like, it doesn't have to be either or. How can it be an and? So it's like, all right, cool. Well, now I go to jujitsu with the kids, and then they stay at the gym with me when I'm working out, which they like watching the adults work out. And then, together we go grab some food afterwards, or we have some camaraderie because we're both in the gym at the same time. So instead of being like, hey, I can either do my thing and disappear and ignore my family, or, oh God, I got to go to another, t-ball game that I hate sitting at, it's an either or situation. It's like, no, let's make it an and. Let's find a sport we can do together. We can grow together. You know this, but your audience doesn't. I didn't start jiu-jitsu until I was 40. My kids started at 4. So it's like, we're kind of the same level. I mean, obviously I still beat his ass because he's a little child, but it's kind of fun to see like our skill set develop at the same pace. And it's the same thing in business and health. You and I have talked about it a lot of times. It's like, I'm not going to ever have 6-pack abs like you at, 45 years old because I'm just working so much and I eat on the road. And you're like, bro, I'm on the road. I run my own business. Doesn't have to be an either or. Like you can run a business and eat healthy, So I think getting rid of that either or mindset and switching over to an and mindset, I think that's the power.
That's good. And I like what you're saying here. Immediately reminds me of my grandfather. He didn't freaking slow down when he had kids. He brought the kids with him to the shop. He was basically a traveling salesman. Then his kids learned the product and they learned how to sell. And guess what? They spent time with their son, which was wonderful.
It's amazing.
Yeah. That's very valuable, I think. What do you like about this jiu-jitsu stuff? Because I've never tried it, to be honest. I think it's kind of ridiculous, but a lot of guys love it. What do you like about it?
No, 100% ridiculous. I do have the benefit of like I used to wrestle in high school. So high school wrestling, you're in that one-piece singlet, which feels very like feels very inappropriate the first couple times you put it on. Really, really makes you question your masculinity. And then you're going to go roll around with a bunch of sweaty other dudes. So it's like, it's kind of funny to put that thing on the first time. So I have the benefit of like having a little bit of that physical combat background. Then you and I used to box together. But much like you, when I hit 40 or so, I was like, dude, do I really want to be getting punched in the head by 25-year-olds that are trying to prove a point? Like my brain's already kind of slow. Like maybe I should look at something else where I don't just get drilled in the face during sparring. My brain can't handle much more trauma or damage. I drank too much in my 20s, so I got to save what's left. But the jiu-jitsu obviously has become wildly popular because of UFC, guys like Joe Rogan, Jocko Willings, they're big advocates for the sport. But I think you would actually like it because despite what people might think about you, you're pretty smart and pretty cerebral, and you're also really physically fit. And so the way that the best way to explain it is jujitsu is like chess with your body, right? It's like you make this move and put this arm there. So I'm going to react by putting my shoulder here. And then you're like, oh, he put his shoulder there. I better move my hips over here. And then you move your hips over there. So I'm like, well, I better move my fat ass over here on top of them, you know? And so it's like this constant back and forth, back and forth, back and forth on physicality. So it's like a physical chess game. Now, for anybody that's thinking about starting it, yourself included, the first year you just get your ass kicked over and over and over again, and you don't win a single game of chess for like a year. But then you start to learn how to defend yourself and move around a little bit, and then you get promoted from like a white belt to a blue belt. And blue belt basically means you just know how to effectively get your ass kicked without hurting yourself, right? So it's a long journey, but you know the guys at the gym are cool. The sport is cool. It's kind of fun now to watch UFC or watch some of these matches and be like, oh, I see what he's doing there. I see where he's trying to manipulate the arm. I see where he's trying to get his hips in the right position to do this move. So I don't know. I'm kind of in love with it, and it's keeping me close to 200 pounds, where if I wasn't working out, I would probably swell up to about 220, 230 pretty quick. So if you're like us, you know, over 40 and not trying to be a UFC fighter, and you walk into a gym and it's totally broed out with egos and everybody's trying to hurt each other, just go to a different gym, because there's a few of those gyms in LA and Vegas where it's like, oh, you go in there and the higher ranked guys are trying to hurt you. Luckily, I found this network of guys at 10th Planet, and although 10th Planet has a ton of like high level competitors, everyone from beginner all the way up to black belt are legitimately trying to help other people in the gym get better. And so it's crazy, like the camaraderie in the gym of like, oh yeah, that's a new guy. Fucking, we got to help him. We got to stop in between rounds to teach him what to do different. And I honestly have not seen anybody get injured in 10th Planet where I'm at in Henderson, other than like some little tweaks and pains and things of that nature. So like anything, it's all about the people we surround ourselves with, and it's all about finding the right group of people to work out with, go into business with, be friends with, go to church with. Same difference.
Okay, that's wonderful. Hey, one of the things I like is that you've not slowed down in your life, as far as I can tell. And how do you do it where you're at in your sales organization? How or who motivates you, or is it internally motivated? How the hell do you say, oh, okay, I can feed my family for years and years if I stop right now? But you're not saying that. You're not saying you're going to chill for 6 months in Cancun. Where does that come from?
I got to tell you, the chill in Cabo for 6 months is looking more and more alluring. So for context, obviously I have the mortgage business. I've got a great group of girls that work with me on the mortgage team. So we're still doing, $90, $100 million worth of business in mortgage, which is a sizable amount. I run a coaching business for loan officers and realtors, which is amazing. Again, I have another group of people. I have a COO, an operations manager, and executive assistant in the Philippines. They all work their ass off to make that coaching business really successful. And then I do the podcast just for fun. And then I'm still trying to be a husband, father, do jujitsu. And what I have found is like, it's not slowing down. It's just refocusing on the stuff that I like to do. So it's like, I enjoy walking on stage and doing the coaching, or, signing onto the Zoom and going over the curriculum, or going out back and smoking a cigar and typing out all the curriculum. What I hate doing is clicking the buttons and doing the follow-up and putting out the Facebook ads. So I think I'm working just as hard, if maybe not harder, now at 43 than I was at 23 or 33. The difference is, because of the success, I can now do just the stuff I like doing. So it's easy to work more hours and do more stuff and keep going and, get up at 5 o'clock in the morning fired up when you're doing the stuff you like. If I was still doing the shit I was doing when I was 33 or 23, analyzing the taxes, clicking the buttons, sending out the mass marketing email instead of just writing the mass marketing email and then handing it off to somebody to do the busy work, I would probably kill myself. But the success from working really hard for 25 years has allowed me the opportunity to hire other people, give them an opportunity, and then me just spend more and more hours doing the things that I like. So I think that's the only way you can prevent yourself from slowing down. Like, we know a lot of men in our 40s, 50s, 60s who are just broken men because they never grew and they just had to keep doing the same repetitive shit that they hated doing in their 20s and are still doing it in their 50s. And it's like, man, that's no way to live. Like, you've got to grow and expand and add more value. So then you can hire people to take the shitty stuff off your plate. And then as you get older, you just do more and more stuff that you like doing. And that kind of keeps you going. Like you, man, like you're starting a whole new venture just based on the fact that like you want to inspire an older generation of men to stay fit, eat healthy, cook their own food, live off the land. Like that's awesome. There's no reason for you to be doing that in your 40s to start a whole new venture when you're wildly successful in your existing business. But that motivates you. You love doing that shit. So it's like, cool, I'm going to do it. I'm passionate and pumped up to do it. And I think that's the only way we can all just keep growing and going. Because I mean, there's a 72-year-old who I worked out with at a jiu-jitsu gym, and that guy's still going hard in the paint. And I'm like, I want to be that dude. I don't want to be in a rocking chair with emphysema at 72 like my entire family was.
Fuck, bro. It's 25% of Americans, damn near, Scotty, who will die of heart disease. And that's a slow, painful, suffocating, literally choking on and drowning in your own phlegm type of death. And that's a quarter of us? Come on. We got to change that at least a little.
It's brutal. I just sent a text message so people can see here I'm drinking out of a Chick-fil-A cup. I did like a couple hours at jiu-jitsu, went to go get some grilled nuggets and an iced tea. And I'm trying not to be judgmental because I also know I'm being hypocritical because I was there at Chick-fil-A eating as well. And I'm not the picture of health. I've got about an extra 15 pounds that I could lose. And my cardiologist would be much happier. But I'm going to say this is going to ruffle some feathers. As I was standing in line, I was looking at some of the families that were ordering food. And I'm like, to me, that's effectively child abuse. I mean, you see a family where the parents are fat and the 10, 11-year-old kids are morbidly obese. They're drinking a 400 calorie, Starbucks Slurpee. Then they're getting a sweet tea that probably has more sugar in it than a soda. Then they're getting enough food to feed an army. And I'm just looking at this family. I'm like, these poor kids, like what chance do these kids have for a healthy future if this is kind of their baseline at 10, 11, 12 years old when you're supposed to be the most active and the most vibrant? And so, I think it's going to take an army of people an army of people like you stepping up to talk about health and fitness and how to avoid heart disease and live, a full, healthy physical life into your 40s, 50s and beyond, because we're in a bad shape. Like when I saw those kids, I just kind of like scanned around Chick-fil-A, and this is not Chick-fil-A's fault because all this shit is, filled into our diet everywhere. And, 60, 70% of people in that restaurant probably would have been considered obese by health standards 40 or 50 years ago. And it's sad, it's really sad.
Yeah, we're lowering the bar. You're right. Instead of raising the bar, we're lowering the bar. I was reading something by an MD named Jason Fung. He's a great writer. I mean, it feels like I'm reading a freaking novel. The guy's talking about obesity. That sounds like nothing more boring, but the guy writes it in a novel, so he has interesting hooks. But anyway, one of the things he talks about is that it used to be normal to have 3 meals a day, and you would sit with family or somebody you gave a damn about, and that helps the digestion and everything. The process is better. You would have 3 meals a day sitting at a freaking table. Now we eat 6, 7 times a day. So we're constantly foraging, let alone the quality of the food, as you just mentioned, has gone to shit. So we're constantly having elevated sugars because the body never gets a chance to freaking relax. Oh, and there's a nighttime snack. So we go to bed digesting, instead of relaxing and building melatonin and all the things that your body actually craves at night. We're doing the opposite. We're having French fries with our girlfriend or wife. It's terrible.
For sure.
The standard has gotten lower and lower, and that's become normalized. It's like, well, of course I'm going to have a pint of ice cream at night watching TV. Why the hell wouldn't you do that? That's what I do. So I guess that's something I wanted to talk about briefly. How do we create a network or a support group or a friendship base or whatever you want to call it of people who have a positive mindset or some kind of healthy thinking or mentality versus something else? And does that make you an asshole if you're like, hey, this is my core group now?
Yeah. There's that old line from Jim Rome where it's like, we become the average of the 5 people we spend the most time with, right? So it's like, this is a perfect example. When me, you, Simon, a couple other guys were hanging out a lot, we were boxing every day. You didn't really drink. Simon didn't really drink. So that means I wasn't really drinking. And then, we'd go out for some bar food once in a while and watch the game. But it wasn't like we were, hey, let's meet up right after work, throw down a plate of sliders, 4 beers, and then go get dinner. It was like, hey, let's meet up after work, do a 2-hour boxing workout, drink a gallon of water and go eat some street tacos, right? And it's like, so you just become the average of the 5 people you hang out with the most. And that happens financially, spiritually. I mean, you show me somebody that hangs out with 4 people that are devout to going to their church and are very committed to their family. It's highly unlikely that 5th guy is going to be like an atheist who cheats on his wife and beats his children. It's just not how the world works, right? And so I think there's nothing wrong with curating our group of friends for the things that we want to accomplish, right? And yeah, it's hard when you have to tell somebody who wants to go get the sliders and beer every day after work, like, oh no, man, like I'm kind of gravitating towards hanging out with my jiu-jitsu friends because I like working out with them and then getting something healthier after dinner or for dinner. Like, why don't you come do jiu-jitsu with us, right? So I think try to pull people into that more healthy or more successful or more entrepreneurial friend group or more religious friend group, whatever you're trying to get better at. That's one thing. And then I think protecting your own health and psyche and, now that I have kids, protecting their well-being based on the group of people we're hanging out with, I don't think that makes you an asshole. I think that makes people responsible.
No, I agree with you, Scotty, of course. But I think now as you spoke, it triggered in my mind something which is I need to step up and not make excuses, because sometimes it's easier to sort of reach down to guys who are maybe not down, because that sounds a little disparaging, but maybe sometimes that's just what it is. If you're in shape and somebody's 300 pounds, yeah, in the world of physical health, you're reaching down. It's easier in a way to not say, oh shit, let me go see that guy over there, what he's up to, who's buff as hell. Or let me talk to this entrepreneur who I know is kicking ass. Or let me, figure out what this guy's doing, who's a wonderful father and his kids seem to love him. That part sometimes takes you out of your comfort zone, I think. And I've noticed in myself, sometimes it's easy to go back and hang out with my family who are all happen to be sadly obese, as you know.
Yeah.
And they maintain those relationships. And part of it might be a comfort thing. I don't know, that maybe psychically we reach for because it's comfortable.
Yeah. It's interesting. I had read something. I wish I could reference the book because this thought has stuck in my mind for probably 2 decades. And I can't remember where I read it. And it was a book kind of about masculinity and being a provider and kind of looking at the historical role of men and whatnot. And it was talking about how, that old term sibling rivalry, right? And it said every man in every area of their life needs to have 3 people. They need to have a mentor, an older sage, somebody you seek out, an Obi-Wan Kenobi type guy, who's been there, done that. You can take him out to lunch, you can show him some interest, and he'll just download knowledge on you. And then you need a peer, whether that's financially or in business or physically, you need a peer so you can have that sibling rivalry with. And then every man needs to be mentoring somebody. Historically, that was your son or daughter. But in a society now where maybe we don't value being a parent as much, or there's a lot of single parent households, or there's people that choose not to have kids, even if you're only 3 steps down the path, there's somebody that's just starting on the path who you can help, right? So using the mortgage analogy, if you're doing 2 or 3 loans a month and you feel like a loser because you're hanging out with a bunch of people that are doing 10 loans a month, well, keep hanging out with the people that do 10 loans a month because you're going to grow. And also find the person that's struggling to get their first deal and mentor them on how you got from 0 to 3. And then find your bro or your sis who's, also doing 3 or 4 loans a month. So you guys can have that sibling rivalry and kind of like, rile each other up and like grow together. And so it was just an interesting look at like human beings need to be mentors. We need to have siblings for sibling rivalry, and we have to be mentors. And so I think maybe what you described as reaching down, maybe a more generous interpretation would be like, hey man, you're trying to be there for the people who you could mentor if they'll listen on health or entrepreneurship or fiscal responsibility. So don't beat yourself up too hard, because I know that you're constantly seeking out mentors you and I and a bunch of other guys we know kind of have that sibling rivalry. And then, there's nothing in reaching down to the people that haven't had the success that you do and then being their mentor. And I think you do that really well without judgment, which is something I like about you.
Thank you. One of the things that you reminded me of is until something like around the late 19th century, we didn't even have medical schools, law schools, any of this stuff that now we consider a requisite to becoming a doctor or a lawyer or anything else. There was basically what you described, which was a tradesman or apprenticeship or journeyman type path. And to me, that was, it just makes perfect sense. If you want to learn to be cutting into a body, you're going to watch somebody else do it first. And it's the same way Abe Lincoln became an attorney. It's the same way.
Right.
It's kind of what you're describing. I'm not saying we're going to go back to that. Maybe we don't need to, but why the hell can't we take elements of that mindset and figure out how do I create something like that in my world? And I bet you there's a lot of guys who would love to have, whether it's free labor or discounted labor or just ideas or just to be there in a pinch for a guy. I would love that in my business. If somebody says, hey, I'm really curious and I've got some potential, will you give me a shot? My bias would be to say yes. I mean, if they suck, I'm going to say no. But if they,
Right.
if they're genuine, A, and B, have some modicum of talent, gosh, that just seems smart. I mean, people used to beg for opportunities like that, right? It's the story of the you want to be a samurai. Well, you got to go and get rejected 3 times, and you don't just say, hi, please let me in, and then he says no and you go home, but instead you stand there in the snow butt naked for 24 hours until he says no, and then you do it again and again. And that kind of grit and that kind of desire to learn what somebody else is doing is perhaps what can inspire not only ourselves to be better, but the person who we're contributing to or helping or looking up to. He might say, son of a bitch, this kid has got something. And I don't just mean kid like a 20-year-old. A kid could be somebody our age who's
For
just
sure.
hungry.
Dude, at the gym that I go to, because I'm like the rookie jujitsu guy, I'm the kid. I'm older than everybody I work out with. And they're like, oh, somebody's got to go with the kid, man, to teach him that leg lock thing. And I'm like, dude, I'm twice your age, you little bastard. But then, then we go have some, then we have some tacos and we talk about business. And then all of a sudden that dynamic shifts, right? So like at the gym, there's 2 guys who I paid for some private lessons with. And then, when we do open mat, I roll with them and they slow down and they teach me stuff because I don't have the physicality that I used to at 21. And they're more gifted than I am at the sport, and they've been doing it longer. So it's like they slow down and teach me. So in that context, I'm the mentee and then they're the mentor, right? And then we're doing this tomorrow actually with a group of them. I'm like, hey, let's go grab lunch afterwards. Then the dynamic shifts. They're the mentee and I'm the mentor because they're like, hey man, we want to hear, this jujitsu thing's only going to go so long. How do we grow our personal brand? Like what other business opportunities should we be looking at? If I win $100,000 because I'm competing, one of the guys is competing in 2 months in the biggest jiu-jitsu tournament in the world. It's called ADCC. He's like, if I win 100 grand, what the fuck do I do with that money? Right? Like I don't know where to invest it or like how to buy a property. And I'm like, cool, like let's go have those mentorship conversations. So even when we're thinking about that dynamic of like, I need a mentor, I need a peer, and then I need to have a mentee, it can shift quickly based on the topic you're discussing, which, not to go off the rails here on what you want to talk about. I think this is why, men and women need to operate amazingly together, and men and women need to have their separate spaces where like women can have camaraderie and fellowship, for lack of a better word. And so can men, because there's certain conversations in that mentee mentor relationship, I think, that a lot of times don't get had if it's in a co-ed space. I think back to my Boy Scout days. It's like I learned so much about being a responsible male, how to treat women, how to treat myself by having conversations with other men without women around. And I try to explain to people that these things are important. And then, there's other coaching groups where you're better off being co-ed and getting ideas from, the entire population. But I kind of went on a tangent there. I guess I'm just saying like, it's interesting how that dynamic can change. And at any age, in any subject, we can always be learning and teaching.
I like that you mentioned that. And I don't want to keep you up on much longer, Scotty. You're busy, you got the family, and I'm grateful to you. But I think it's a good one that you mentioned, because that puts me into wondering, are there times when I'm relying maybe too much on my lady for things that I should be getting from my mentor or mentees. And that might just be a form of laziness that we have to watch out for as men, because obviously you live with this person, you love her. We like hanging around with our ladies. I've met your wife. She's wonderful. She's smart. Of course you want to hang out with her. But if you have only her as far as bouncing ideas off of, you may be missing something. And it may just be a sign of being a little bit on the lazy side on us, perhaps. So that's a good one.
You know, if I can be a little vulnerable, and I don't think my wife would mind me sharing this story. I struggle with this a little bit because I have a little bit of this like old school caveman mentality where I'm like, well, you know, I work in a fully commissioned job, mortgages, you know, running my own coaching business, much like you. We eat what we kill. If our business isn't going well, like we're not generating money, you know, neither of us have a paycheck. And so my mindset is to like protect the family, protect my spouse. And that includes like their mental health, right? And so I struggle with this where I'm like, well, do I really want to come home from a rough day at work and download the things that went wrong, or the commissions we lost, or the deal that got away, or the relationship that got damaged, which, you know, she's smart enough to know a damaged relationship means a hit to our income going forward, because we kind of have a repetitive business in the mortgage business where I count on realtors for referrals. So I have a very hard time sharing with my spouse what's going on at work. I just kind of like shut down at 5:01, and I'm like, I don't want to download the challenges of work onto my wife. Like, why would I do that to my wife and make her worried? In her mind, she comes from a very traditional Hispanic family where it's like, oh, no, we do the daily download for 4 hours and you tell me about everything that happened in your day. So it's a marital tension that we're constantly trying to improve on, because I'm like, dude, I don't want to tell you anything about my day. Why would I want to regurgitate all the shit I had to deal with? You know, I'll tell you a couple of the wins, but like, I don't want to tell you that business is tough or these clients backed out of the deal because they think we're in a recession. And she's like, tell me everything. And so it's this tension in our marriage where it's like, I want to give her what she wants, but I also need to honor the fact that like, it kind of like makes me feel like less than a man if I'm complaining to my wife about the things that were tough at work. And it's like, it's the whole men are from Mars, women are for Venus. It's a tough dilemma. Not that it's going to be a deal breaker for our marriage, but it's like, it's an interesting tension that we talk about a lot.
That's fun. And a lot of guys go one further, like Dan Pena, who some of us know and follow on YouTube and stuff like that. You know, the old school 70 something now, and he'd kick both of our asses in a bar fight. Yes. Mentor, you know, and his attitude is no sharing of doubts, period. You don't share doubts with your mentors, with your mentees, with your wife, even with yourself. You're only focused on the future. You're looking up constantly. And that's another way to look at it, right? So.
Yeah. Like almost have blinders to anything negative and just, I'm zeroed in on positivity 24/7. It's going to be awesome. Maybe I need to adopt more of that mindset. Like, oh, it's not that I'm hiding the negative stuff from you. I just don't believe in any of the negative stuff. Everything's an opportunity. We're moving forward. We're crushing it. I kind of like that. I'm gonna adopt that. Thanks for resharing that with me.
It's one way to go, bro. It is one way to go. It's kind of the idea that, oh, I feel really ill today, or I'm down in the dumps, or I'm under the weather. Well, let me do something to change that. And then after I've changed it and felt better, then I can reflect back and go to counseling if I really think I need it. But oh my God, do I want to get dragged down into that shit right now? Absolutely not. Let me go ahead and, you know, get rich first, get healthy first, get strong first, get my 6-pack first, get whatever it is that you're getting. You know, it doesn't have to be physical stuff. And thanks, Scotty. I won't keep you, bro. But it's great seeing you too. I invite you to join me and other men who are doing everything we can to find our own savage, whether it comes to health, wealth, or just having a badass attitude in this short life. We're not here very long. Let's make the best of it. Join me.